G'day folks, John here from Gangers Construction. Just wanted to do a 2-week update on the Milwaukee nailers. We're currently working on a shop build, and so we've been using this as our go-to nailer. We have not actually pulled out any of the air nailers. We're going to run these right through the project. We also have a pig barn that we're doing on that same site, and we're going to do the same deal as well there. So that'll give us a lot of roof strapping to do, which is about the highest volume of nailing you can do in a short period of time. And also we've got quite a bit of ceiling strapping to do. And so you've got that overhead. That's the part when you really decide which nailer you really like the best for all use. Up until this point, it's always been the, I should have brought over here, the Hitachi, now Metabo here in Canada. Their lighter one, not the older large version. The older ones are more durable, but the lighter one is much more ergonomic and easier to use. Now these are heavier, so that remains to be seen. That will come in a different update, different review, however you want to say it. I'm going to call this the 2-week review. This is our impressions up to this point, and those may change down the road. Now, I have to say I've been very impressed. The pass load gas nailers, when we first had them, we really liked them. They were consistent. We had no issues as far as firing, nails jamming, etc. They were really good. But the longer slide, we really wished we could have that, and it had been an option on the older version, and I called Passload and spoke with them, and they said there is no long version coming out for the newer nailer. And so we really like that with the Milwaukee. That to me is big points. Also, the weight of the nailer, thinking of that and relating to air, when we're working out of lifts and we're pulling, say, 20 or 30 feet of hose, I'm going to say that this is actually slightly lighter. Now, there is ways to offset that, say tie your hose to the lift, etc., and then the air nailer is lighter. The pass load is lighter than what this is. But if you're used to running the Hitachi coil nailers or the Boss Stitch coil nailers, these are lighter. And they're also balanced very well. And what we've actually been doing is often running the 9 amp hour batteries. Occasionally we'll run the 12s depending on what we're doing. I tend to grab the 5s if I am, say, climbing on the walls, doing details, etc. I know I'm not doing a lot of nailing. But if I was going to be going up and nailing down, strapping, sheathing, whatever, I'd be grabbing a 9 or a 12 for the extended run time. And also we have found with the 9s and 12s, we get faster cycle times. Particularly with the 12s, we see that versus the 5s. And Milwaukee has advertised these as 3 nails per second. I don't really care what the number is. The fact remains, as an experienced framer running nailers, you are going to be faster than what this nailer is. With an air nailer, you almost cannot overrun it. They're very quick, their response time. But what we have found is if you do not keep the gun against whatever you're nailing for the entire cycle, you can actually come off before it's completed the cycle, and then you will have problems with underdriven nails. Now we're talking, maybe 1/8 of an inch, sometimes less. But even if you have an underdriven nail by 1/8 of an inch and you throw a roof steel on that or siding steel, you'll see that. To me, that's a fail. We don't want that. But if you just slow it down that, 1/10 of a percent, then it's a non-issue. I have never seen a nailer nail like this before. I'll throw in a clip here of me on the roof there tying in our truss sections, and I'll give you my thoughts on site in that video clip. Not sure how this is going to work. Probably should have another guy holding the nail or the camera, but I don't like wasting that time. So we're just getting ready here to throw some roof steel on today. And so we're just piecing in our strapping between the truss sections we've craned up. Thought I'd just pop a quick video of me throwing some nails in here. I should have had a few boards set up, but this strapping was all nailed with these nailers pretty much. We have a few hand nails because when we put the sections together we always hand nail, as it holds better than the power nails. But observation on nailing on strapping, that is a use case where typically even the air nailers we have problems with nails not getting driven in all the way, and that has not been the case with the Milwaukee. If you lift the nailer too soon, the nail will not be driven all the way, but if you keep the nailer against through the entire firing cycle, then we have absolutely no nails that are protruding. I would say it's the best we've ever had it. Air, gas, the DeWalt ring baps as we call them. We're very impressed with performance on the 3 1/4s for sure. Now we always use the ring shank galvanized, so they drive a little bit harder than say the slicks, but very good. We're very happy with it on the high volume, just sit there and nail production work. It's definitely replacing air for us in this case. Now on the shear walls down there, the plywood, the 2 3/8 Tomahawk, one of the brands we run, it was an absolute no-go. We had a lot of nails that didn't, like, we're talking sticking out an inch still. Obviously the angle doesn't match with the nailer correctly, and it's a problem. We switched to another brand and it works significantly better. We might actually have to fork out the money and try some pass loads, see how they work. But looks like they're might be a little bit finicky, but we found some air nailers that way as well. So hey, that's how it goes. So a little bit of an update. I'll throw this in with the review when we get there. So that's basically summarizing my thoughts at this point in regards to the nails. Now as far as the ergonomics, I think in one of my previous videos I showed I was nailing some blocking in a wall, and it hits here before it actually trips the nose. And that honestly is the only negative that I can give you on nailing. At first I thought this nose design would not be very good for tool nailing, but it really grabs. When these side teeth, so to speak, they don't feel or look that sharp, but they really grab, and the angle here is just perfect to give yourself a perfect toenail. It's right up there with the best nailers in our opinion when it comes to toenailing, and toenailing is something we do quite a bit of. The adjustment for depth, I really like this. It's very smooth, it's intuitive. There's, you know, anybody can figure it out, and it's also quick. And then we find it doesn't move. If we set it somewhere, it stays. On the power button and the mode selector, I was very negative with that in my initial impressions. And well, I still don't like that it switches back to sequential when it powers off. What we have found, and somebody commented, they believe it's a 60-minute timeout on the power. I don't know, I didn't time it. But it is long enough that typically we never have to turn it on. We start a day if we're framing, we can stop for lunch, come back, and the nailers are still on, we can roll. When you change the batteries, yes, you're going to have to go through that sequence again, but okay, it's an electronic, I understand completely. So I'm actually finding that that little concern of mine with the modes does not apply. With the Hitachi, it was more of an issue. with these, I'm actually happy with it. Now, onto the slides. This is the one. It got dropped from the second story onto concrete, and the slide actually has a slight kink in it right here, and one half of the slide jumped out of the cast at the end, and this little casting is actually split here now. And so one of my guys pulled it apart and bent the this aluminum slide back into that cast nose, and it feeds as good as any of the nailers do. And I was concerned about that, because mostly we find if we damage a slide, the nailers tend to not feed as well afterwards. But this one has survived, so I was impressed with that. The fact that there's no retention here, that to me is a negative. I definitely think of it coming from the other nailers now, because what I'll catch myself doing, if there's not room for that second strip, almost, but you can get the second strip in behind. I'm used to throwing that second strip in and letting the little catch retain that strip. You know, I'll run another 20 some nails or whatever, and then I'll just jerk the slide back and grab that second strip. So it's a retraining thing for me, but I personally would wish that they had a retention here. Even when you're dropping nails out, I don't mind having to push another catch here. But really, that's not a deal breaker. That's just being picky. Then on the slide, the only thing we've had go wrong so far is where the heads of the nails run inside the slide, there is a steel insert. I'm assuming so that the slide doesn't wear out as soon. And there's a little bitty tab here that holds it in. On one of our nailers, and it's not this one, this is the one we dropped, one of our nailers, that tab broke and that metal wear strip was coming out. I'll pop in a couple pictures here. So I got frustrated, I jerked that out, chucked it, and we were just running it without that steel wear strip at this point. I spoke with my tool dealership that we work with, and they contacted Milwaukee to mention it to them. I decided I'm not going to make a stink at this point. I'm going to run the slides, and we're going to see if there's any harmful side effects from that, what's going to go wrong, right? It's not as much of a, oh, they should be giving me a warranty case, because I expect, knowing my tool dealer, that if we do need a new slide later on because of that, we will be able to have it replaced. Now on to the hooks, the belt hook and the rafter hook. We had one of the rafter hooks break, but that was due to a number of 2x4s being dropped on the nailer while it was hanging like this on bottom cord of the truss. So no fault of its own, but it broke the hook. It did not break the bracket that holds it or anything on the nailer. So I was happy to see that. If it's just hooks we break, we can replace hooks and we can drive on. This hook is a very well thought out. It is large enough that it is easy to drop it onto a 2x, top cord, bottom cord, you name it. It grips well. We have no problems with sliding down the trusses. It's not too narrow that you gotta kind of fish it on, and it's not so wide that the nailer hangs at funny angles and is apt to fall off. We really, really like it. What we like even more is this belt hook. That is, I don't know why nobody ever put that on a nailer before. It is an absolutely, they knocked it out of the park. The guys that have the leather loops or the leather pouch for their tape measures, they actually just hang their nailers on there, and they really like it. I don't have that option. I often hang my nailer in the pocket where I have my level, But I started hanging it on my drill hook here. No, I can't do it. And I gotta say, that's my favorite. I really like it on the drill hook. I find it's easy to hook it on there normally, and I don't lose it. It doesn't swing around and bash me in the leg or something like that. Whereas hanging it down here, I have found it to be hard on my leg occasionally. But that hook, I tell you, that is it's the handiest thing going. Belt on this side. If you're doing a mix, you can actually leave this flipped out. And if you're running nailer right-handed like I do, you hang it on here, you hang it on the truss. It's just a very natural way to use a nailer, so very impressed with that. The power of the nailer at this point with a new chart, like it's brand new basically, is more than any of the air nailers that we run currently or have run. When you're doing plywood, even if you have the depth adjusted all the way out, the tendency is to overdrive nails. It's there's definitely a lot of crack behind this thing. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, give it 6 months to a year of use, if that power, I'm sure it will drop off as the tool wears, and if it comes in, it just levels out in a very usable state, or how it's going to react that way. So time will tell. We'll do a review later on. I'm not sure when, probably when we get the strapping on. I will mention how it worked for us and how we felt it was for overhead nailing. Battery life, I have not kept track. They say 750 nails. I don't know, but what I will say is I have not found it to be a problem. You definitely do go through batteries, but it's not like all you're doing is getting batteries. It's acceptable, we'll say. So there you go. That is our 2-week thoughts on the nailer, and we're giving it an A+. We like it. All the guys are sold on it. If they continue working like this for us for the next 2 years, then they'll be doing better than any nailer we've had to date. Now, one thing we really want, and if Milwaukee's listening here, we want this with the gusset nailers like the strap shot. We had to string out air hoses and air compressor to do one measly task. I think you could give us a nailer to replace that. Anyhow, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to roll a video clip at the end here of me slapping in some couple strapping, and you'll see kind of how we use it on the roof system. And keep working hard. Many depending on you.